things. Now, one of the things that truck drivers often report seeing is the black dog. Now, the black dog apparently appears to truckers when they've been on the road too long and they start getting tired, and it's sort of a omen, a warning that they need to get off the road or they will be in a terrible accident and lose everything. Um, and I heard one black dog story that stood out to me. There was this trucker who was driving on Interstate 80 one night, and he had been going for 22 hours straight. He starts, getting really tired, so he turns on the air, he turns on the radio, and as he's driving down the interstate, right in the middle of the road, along the yellow lines, is this black dog running right towards him. He slams on his brakes, and the dog goes right underneath him. And he thinks it's weird because he didn't feel anything when he hits this dog. But he feels bad about this. So he thinks, I should get out and check on this dog and at least put him to the side of the road. So he gets out of his truck and he's, got a flashlight and he's looking around and he doesn't find a dog anywhere. So he gets back in his truck, and as he's driving, he radios to another driver and he tells him, what had just happened to him. And that driver instantly says, "Get off the road right now and go to sleep. Do not drive anymore tonight." And so this driver's like, "Oh, okay." So he pulls off on the truck stop, and he goes to sleep for a couple hours. When he gets up, he decides to go and use the bathroom inside the truck stop. When he sees at least 5 or 6 police cars, in front of this truck stop, and so he talks to one of the police officers, and he goes, "Is everything all right?" And they go, "No, it's just been a crazy night. We were responding to a terrible accident. Truck driver fell asleep, destroyed his rig," and he goes, "Whereabouts did this happen?" And the police officer tells him, and that was in the exact same location that he had seen the black dog. Now, this story takes place in Wisconsin. There's a truck driver. He's doing basically what's, I believe, is called a meet and turn, where one trucker will meet another trucker at a halfway point and they will exchange loads, and that second trucker will take the load to its destination. Now, he gets to this meetup point, and it's just this big parking lot next to a bunch of warehouses. And he's there an hour early. So he says, "You know what? I'm just going to take a nap and wait for this guy to come." So he gets in the back of his cab and he's just, sleeping. And all of a sudden he hears barking. And he thinks, why is there a dog in the middle of this like warehouse district? And it starts getting louder and louder. And it sounds like this dog is just like very agitated, almost like it's barking at his truck. So he gets up and he goes to the front of his truck and he looks out the window and he sees a man outside his window. But the man is what's making the barking sounds. And he thinks, what the heck, like what's going on? So the dude just gets in the driver's seat and, starts driving off. And this dude is chasing him while barking at the truck. And, he drives off. The other driver calls him like, "Hey, why aren't you at the pickups or at the meetup spot?" And guys, tells him what happened. And he's like, "Well, I'm here. There's no dude. There's no dogs. There's nothing around." And he said after that, he stopped doing these meet and turns because it had freaked him out that bad. So another creepy trucker story that I'd heard is in Greenwich, Rhode Island, there is a truck stop that is literally right next to this old cemetery. And one night, this truck driver, he, pulls in for the night and he goes in the back of his cab, and he starts going to sleep. Well, it wasn't long before he hears boom, 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 3 knocks on the side of his rig. And he thinks, it's probably like a lot lizard or something. So he goes, he opens up the curtain and he looks out and there's no one there. So he's like, what's going on? So he closes the curtain, goes back to sleep. Once again, man, he's woken up. Boom, boom, boom. And he gets out this time of his rig and he starts looking around. There's no one outside, no one near his truck. And so he goes back in and he says, "You know what? I'm going to sleep in the driver's seat. And if, someone comes and knocks on the door, I'll see him this time and tell him to stop messing with me." So he's laying in the driver's seat and all of a sudden his rig starts up by itself. And he's looking, at the, like, how in the world did this just start up? So he turns it off and he thinks, I need to get a cup of coffee, man. I'm losing my mind. And so he gets out of his truck, goes into the truck stop and starts talking to the lady at the counter. And she goes, "Yeah, there's right next to here, the cemetery is an old pioneer cemetery from the 1800s. And a lot of weird stuff happens here at the gas station." And so he was tired, but he decided, I'm going to go somewhere else and sleep. And so he got in his truck and just left. Um, this next story is to me is the creepiest. There was a truck driver who basically he drove this flatbed trailer that, and his job essentially was to take cars that had been in wrecks and apparently bring them to this place where they would research these cars and see what they could have done differently to prevent um, damage in certain points of the car or death and stuff like that. And so one night he's transporting this wreck that had been in a bad car accident and completely totaled this vehicle. And as he's driving down the interstate, he hears beep, 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 like a horn honking. And he's looking out his mirrors. There's no one behind him. He's thinking, "What? Who the hell's honking at me?" So he uh, keeps on driving. And once again, beep, 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 he's hearing honking. So he's like, "Wait a second. Is that coming from the cars that I'm transporting?" So he pulls off the road and he gets out of his truck and he goes and he's like looking around at this truck or at the car that he's transporting. And there's no horn honking or anything. And like, he thinks maybe the car, from the damage from the wreck, maybe, it is causing the horn to go off or something. So he gets back in his truck and he starts driving again. And as he's driving, right, he hears the honking. And I mean, his whole drive to the nearest truck stop, this car is honking from the back, even though there's no one inside of it and it's completely totaled. So he pulls off into the truck stop and he gets out and he's walking around the back of his truck, around the trailer. And he's just looking at this vehicle and he's trying to figure out how in the world can this horn honk? And right at that moment, the car starts up and the lights turn on and the engine starts revving. And he's freaked out at this point. And so he goes and runs back in his car and he radios to dispatch and he's like, "I don't know what's going on. This car is turned on by itself and the lights are on and it's honking. I don't know what to do." And so dispatch says, "Go and just look inside the car, make sure that, there aren't keys in the ignition or, check a few things and just, get this load to where it's supposed to be." So he gets out, goes back to the vehicle. And when he looks up into the driver's side, he sees a face of a man just staring at him, looking at him from the window. And he just takes off running, leaves his rig there. And he calls dispatch and is like, I'm not taking this load. I'm not even getting back in the truck to drive to the nearest truck stop. Like I'm done. I'm not doing this." And he quits his job like that day. And he had been trucking for like 20 years. And he said he never would like not, give up a load or anything. And after that day he quit and he never was a trucker again.